Welcome to this edition of Morgan You Asked For podcast. We're going live again tonight. We're going to see how this works. Trev is back this week. Welcome back, Trevor. Lots going on this week. We've got postseason baseball. We've got NFL firings. We've got college football, one of the best weekend so far, and probably one of the best weekends of the year coming up until you get to championship weekend. Everything. We got a hurricane hitting Florida, and the two baseball games going on right now. One's 5-0, and then I believe the Kansas City and the Yankees are real close. I've been off of that for just a little bit here. Got the Dodgers Padres game on here, and then hurricane stuff. Just for a few housekeeping things. I heard a lot of good things about going live. I saw several people. They said they liked it. They tuned in just for off and on, and that's absolutely fine. And we just appreciate everybody that does tune in and watch and listen, whether it's live or whatever podcast you listen to, or YouTube podcast player or anything. And again, if you want a koozie, and I've got a koozie right here, you can see it right here. It's got our logo and everything on there. You can message me on Facebook. You can message me on Twitter or X. Or you can email us at morganyouaskforpodcast@gmail.com with your address, and I will stick one of those in the mail, and I'll send it to you. I've got about half a box left. I've used about half a box. Still have quite a few left. I'd love to send some out to some of our fans. Again, continue to rate, like, and subscribe on your favorite podcast player. If you don't have one, I suggest Spotify. That helps us out the most. And again, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for watching and listening. We want to start with the Cyclones. Pun intended to the hurricane going on in Florida. Cyclone, Hurricanes, synonyms there. Up to number 11. Another slow start, down 14-3. But then from then on, they won 40-7. Blowout win. Wasn't really close after that. Historically, that is what the Cyclones do. That they don't always have the fastest start, and especially on defense. And I listen to a lot of podcasts and read articles. I mean, I follow the Cyclones fanatically as anybody. And that is what our defensive coordinator does. He knows that's the script. He's going to figure out what you want to do. And then he's going to take away A and maybe B. And you're going to have to beat him with C, D, E, and F. Some teams are good enough to do that, but most teams are not. And so far, nobody's been good enough yet this year to beat them. Probably the toughest test coming up. Every game's the toughest test because you're undefeated. You're ranked 11. You have people predicting to go to the college football playoff now, winning the Big 12 conference. But this game's the biggest. You win this one, the next game's the biggest. Iowa State's not been 5-0 since 1980, so I'd have been like 8 months old when the season started. Have not been 6-0 since 1938. So we're approaching very much uncharted waters for the Cyclones, and each game gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I thought that was a game that Iowa State typically loses. They've got a little bit of momentum. They get down early. In the past, I think that's a game they would have dropped. And they fought their way back and ended up winning that one, which was good. So, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of predictions of Iowa State as one of the top 4 seeds as of right now. Long way to go. I do think this week's going to be tough. Last I looked, Iowa State's favored by 3, but it's going to be a night game, Morgantown, West Virginia. That crowd's going to be very fired up. I have no idea if Pat McAfee could make it back in time for kickoff. I have no idea if he's even going to try, but yeah, that crowd's going to be pretty riled up for that one.
And that's what I was not able to go this last Saturday night, but my dad did, my brother did, and others went, and I heard it was the best crowd, best thing in a long, long time. White out, fireworks, white uniforms, and just a packed house. The music was better. The in-crowd interactions are better. And Iowa State is walking into the exact same thing this week. They're doing their Coal Rush game. The stadium looks a lot like Iowa State's. It's the same architect that built it. It's a hard place to get to. It's going to be 98% Mountaineer fans. It's hard. You can't fly into Morgantown, really. You go to Pittsburgh and then you have to drive in. For most people, I mean, you can obviously get there if you have the resources and want to do that. But most people just fly to Pittsburgh and then drive down to Morgantown. And this is a game that's hard, but if you want to get to your goals at the end of the year, this is when you have to win.
Yeah, Iowa State, this is they're undefeated, so every game, like you said, is a must win at this point. It's going to be a tough one. They've proven in back-to-back weeks now that, like I said previously when I texted you, I know I wasn't able to be on last week, but the past two games, those are games that typically Iowa State would have dropped just from past experiences. And the fact that they've been able to find a way to win them, I think, is a testament to Iowa State, the coaching staff. And it's everything that you predicted before the season is right in front of them right now.
Yep. So this is what is crazy about the Big 12. Is it the best conference in America? Absolutely not. Is it the second best conference? No. But looking at the beginning of the year, Iowa State's schedule didn't look real tough. And overall, it's still not real tough because not a lot of teams ranked, but West Virginia is undefeated still in the conference. Texas Tech is undefeated in the conference. Central Florida only has one loss in the conference. Now they've lost 2 in a row. But some of these teams that Iowa State, was supposed to necessarily be better than going in are teams that are proven to be pretty good. And then teams that we thought were going to be better, Kansas State, Utah, don't look great. It's kind of flipped a little bit, and we're going to see what we're made of. And I said it, you said it, every game gets bigger, bigger, and bigger. This is 3 straight night games, 4 straight night game next week, or in 10 days against Central Florida. We're going to see what the Cyclones are made of. They've got every opportunity in front of them. 10-win season, conference championship, and we're going to see where it goes. And now you've got people asking questions. Is a 10-win season and not getting to the Big 12 championship game, is that a disappointment? Is an 11-game win total with the bowl game, is that a disappointment if you don't get to the playoff? These are conversations that's never been had before for the Cyclones. Some of it is 14 playoffs. You had to go essentially undefeated, maybe 1 loss at the most. And just kind of talking college football in general, and we'll talk about this, but all the upsets that happened this last week, Tennessee, Alabama, those teams essentially with the 14 playoff would have been out. But now those losses don't matter. And I heard this talking about with baseball earlier, the regular season does mean less now for some teams, especially teams in the Big Ten and the SEC. They don't have to win every game. They can lose more than once. You think they're going to leave a 10-2 Alabama team out of this playoff? Absolutely not. And they're having meetings and everything in Nashville right now to discuss how to get more teams in. They're going to add teams to the NCAA basketball tournament and that would benefit the Big 12 because of what they've done to help their conference in basketball. They're like the SEC football, but only on the basketball side. And I was listening to this. I was watching a little bit of the Yankees and Royals, and 20 years ago, when only 2 teams out of each league went to the playoffs, or maybe they just had 3 or 4 instead of 6 like they do now. You had to win 90 to 100 games to get to the playoffs. Now you only need to win 85. So teams like the Royals, the Tigers, the Twins, they can field a team that can win 85 games a year. They can't field a team that wins 100 games every year. And that's what it used to take. And that's why the Dodgers have trouble. That's why the Yankees haven't won a World Series in 2009. You give some of these, the more teams get in, the more chances for an upset. Just like who would have ever thought Vanderbilt would have beat Alabama this week after what they did to Georgia the week before? You just have to get to the playoff. And then, a whole nother argument is, and we've talked about this several times as well, Iowa State goes and wins the Big 12, they get the number 4 seed, you don't get a home game. Your first playoff game is against, it'll be the 5, they're going to be the 4 seed, so let's just say they're the 5, it'll be a team like Georgia or a team like Alabama that beat the 12 seed, and that you're going to go play that team in the Sugar Bowl. How do you like to go play Alabama in the Sugar Bowl? It would not be fun at all. But if you could get to that 5 seed or 6 seed, then you get a home game. And even if it is against Alabama and Georgia, they got to come to Jack Trice Stadium December 21st. That's not what they want to do at all.
Yeah, if you're Iowa State, you almost want to get that 5 or 6 seed at this point. I would say if all things work out about as well as they could, and John Middlecoff, the guy I sent you a video a while back, he was talking about he's not the only one to theorize this, but the Alabamas and the Georgias, they don't have the depth that they used to have because of NIL and the transfer portal. So his theory is we'll start seeing more upsets. Teams like Vanderbilt or the Purdues of the world or whoever, they're probably going to be able to pull off more of these upsets moving forward. So as you mentioned, the regular season doesn't necessarily matter as much for an Alabama or Georgia typically as it would have, but we might start seeing more upsets over top 10 teams than we normally would have in the past.
Yeah, I just meant that, if a year ago, Alabama and Tennessee essentially would be in a playoff game right now. They have to win every game to get in. And if you do, great, you're in. If not, you're out. It's just college football's changing. Iowa has been bit by the transfer portal. And I understand those two guys are not playing. They want to play. But to go play a few games or play a few snaps, some things need to just change. I have questions. Do they still go to school at Iowa the rest of the semester? Or are they just out? Do they do any workouts with the team? Are they out? There's lots of questions there. What happens to these players that are opting out after 3, 4, or 5 games, whatever it is, that they played to preserve their red shirt to play next year somewhere? I don't know the answers to those. I would assume they're not with the team because I have a hard time believing Kirk Ferentz is going to let Caleb Brown work out in his facility and he's not going to try to help his team. I don't know that, but I just have a hard time believing that he would allow that.
Yeah, probably not. And as far as schooling goes, I have no idea either. I haven't even thought about that, to be honest, but I can't blame those guys for wanting to get out. You're ruining your chances of playing in the NFL if you're a skill position player at Iowa at this point. Quarterback and receiver especially. Running back's a little bit different, but we've got a really good starting running back right now. So, yeah, I don't blame either of them. I'd go somewhere else too. And that could probably lead us to the Iowa conversation.
Yeah, Iowa 7-0 at half. Looked okay. I'll be honest, didn't watch any of the first half. We were playing golf in Williamsburg, had a good time. And then it kind of got out of hand. I didn't watch it, but it showed Iowa State's still way behind. That's what no one was expecting Iowa to win the football game, but they wanted to see the gap closed, and it's not closed.
No, it's not closed at all, to be honest. And back when we talked about this last time that you and I were both on with Stanzi, CJ Beathard, some of those other guys, the offense was at least capable. And you knew if you went into a Penn State or a Michigan, you had a chance. You might need a turnover, a couple big plays, but you knew you had a chance. With this Iowa offense right now, there's no chance to go into an Ohio State and win the game. And I text you, it's just run its course. I'm not saying that Kirk Ferentz needs to be fired. I'm just saying I don't see anything changing. We're gonna beat good to average teams, and there's something to be said for that. Those wins do matter, but right now we have no chance to go in and beat some of the top teams in the country on the road when you're only one-dimensional and you can't throw the ball.
Correct. And just one thing, I do see a few people are on here. If you would like to comment, you can go to the YouTube or on the comments on the I believe just YouTube has the comments where you can comment, ask a question or anything. Feel free to join that. Facebook, If you could switch over to YouTube, we can see your comments. Facebook, I haven't figured out how to see the comments on that yet. So those of you that are listening, if you want to comment or ask a question, flip over to YouTube, and I believe you'll be able to comment. Just Cade McNamara is not the guy. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, in my opinion. And they've got to – Kirk Ferentz isn't going to do it, but they really just need to make the switch to Sullivan and see what they have with him, and then see what they need to do for next year. If he's their guy, or if they got to go get somebody else, which they need to go get somebody else anyway, just because you always need a quarterback. But see how bad they need somebody for next year.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see Sullivan play a little bit. Speaking of this Saturday, we'll get into this here shortly, but it looks like one of the best Saturdays on paper in the regular season, maybe of our lifetime. We'll see how the games live up to the hype. But, I was thinking, what am I going to do Saturday? Because I'm going to watch College Game Day and Pat McAfee from 7 to 10 a.m. I'm in Mountain Time Zone. And all day there's great games. And I want to get outside and go for a walk for about an hour at some point in the day, because I don't want to sit on my recliner or couch from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. I want to get outside for an hour. And I was trying to find a window of where I could do that. And I decided the window is going to be during the Iowa first half. I don't need to watch Iowa in the first half. I'm going to skip it. I don't need to see Cade McNamara paddle or going backwards right off the bat, throwing off his back foot for a 2-yard out to a fullback. I don't need to watch 3 hours of that. I'll come in and watch the second half.
Yeah. Do you find it weird that what Fox did? I think they were planning on having Iowa and Washington as big noon kickoff, but then it just didn't work out. They're not having they're the big noon game, but they're not the big noon kickoff, which is very odd for Fox. Now, Game Day has done that for a long time, where they're going to be somewhere, and it's not necessarily where the game is. But I believe this is new for Fox. Am I wrong in that?
I don't know for sure. I think you are right, because it's the big noon game, but Joel Klatt and Gus are going to be at BYU Arizona,
right?
Which is they were probably hoping to go to Ohio State Oregon. I would have thought that's where they would have liked to have been.
What time is that game? What time is the Oregon Ohio State game?
I think that's a 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock game my time.
Okay, so
it's a packed schedule on Saturday. I mean, it's from very beginning to the end of the night. You've got good games. Iowa State's, I think, 6:30 my time, and then Colorado, Kansas State's 7:30 or 8 or something like that. But there's good games all day.
Yeah, the 3 ranked big games are Ole Miss, LSU, Ohio State, Oregon, and then the Red River Shootout, Oklahoma and Texas. But as you said, Colorado, K-State is a big game. Iowa State, West Virginia is a pretty big game. And I think Iowa, Washington is a big game. Washington with a good win last week, and Iowa needs to just get back and go win your 10 games and see where the chips fall.
Yeah,
an opportunity. I mean, I don't think it's going to get there, but they are going to be favored in almost every game throughout.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Cade will probably go out and throw for 185 yards and 2 touchdowns, and everything will be joyful again. And we know it's not. It's fool's gold is what it is.
Yeah, we've talked about it many, many times, but for as great as Kirk Ferentz is and that coaching staff, they cannot figure out the quarterbacks.
No, it's really dropped off. And again, not saying Kirk needs to be fired. He can coach another year or 5 more years, but unless we bring in some recruit that we just hit a diamond in the rough, or find some NFL potential receivers like we had with DJK and McNutt. Now, they didn't work out in the NFL, but they were borderline NFL guys.
Yep.
Until we start finding some guys like that, we'll beat the good to average teams, which is important. Not trying to deny that, but if you got to go to Ohio State or in the future, or go to Oregon, Penn State, we got no chance.
And you got to give Lester some time to go recruit his guys. Mm-hmm. They did get a quarterback recruit. I saw. Hopefully he was able to recruit and he was okay with the guy, not just this is your area, everything, and then give him some time to get receivers. because like you said, DJK and McNutt, you can win a lot of college football games with them because they are really good and they're borderline NFL guys. DJK was an NFL guy, but I believe Ferentz just told everybody to stay away because he didn't like him and didn't like the way he did things.
Yeah, a little bit of a diva receiver, which most receivers are, especially once
they are.
We see that all the time. So that's not really too much of a surprise. But yeah, those Sash years and Claiborne, like when they went into Penn State, us Iowa fans, we felt really good, like we had a chance. Like we almost kind of knew we were going to win that game. And now it's the opposite. Going to Ohio State this past weekend, it's like we know we're going to lose. Just by how much?
Yeah, and that is the difference in the last 8 years, I would say. Maybe a little bit less. They used to be they would pull off an upset, or they would stay in these games. They played low possession. They'd punt the football. They would just do things, and they would lose 24-14. A game like that. Now, all last year, they didn't score a point against a ranked team. They scored 19 points against Iowa State, but what was it? 13 of them were in the first half, so that in the second half they scored one touchdown, went for two, and didn't make it. And then they got one touchdown late against Ohio State. So in the last 6 quarters against ranked teams, and Iowa State was not ranked at the time, they've scored 2 touchdowns. That's not going to win you very many football games, whether it's Brian Ferentz as their offensive coordinator or Tim Lester.
No, it's not. And you're right. Tim Lester needs some time, and maybe he'll work out. But right now, as far as this season goes, I don't see much change. And if Iowa racks off 8, 9, even 10 wins, and we have to go play a real tough opponent in a bowl game, I mean, we're going to have to do more than just run the ball. We're going to have to complete some passes, and I just don't trust Cade to do that.
Do more changes on the offensive side need to happen besides just coordinator, or is it just they're not having the right players?
It's probably not the right players right now because, again, like you said, Tim Lester just recently came into this. He probably needs a good 2 to 3 years. So he's dealing with the players that he got handed to mostly. So it could be a combination of that, but it doesn't seem like a whole lot's changed from the past 5 or 6 years. I mean, we're running the ball pretty good. The offense technically is a little bit better, I think, but it doesn't feel much better.
Well, and I touched on this a lot, and I thought, and I was right in this as well. The offense is better in running and throwing the football. Special teams are not as good. They're still good, but they're not as good. And the defense is still good, but not as good. And so they're not a top 5 defense right now. They're not a top, special team in the country like they've been the last 2 or 3 years. And, Torrey Taylor's doing it took him a couple games in the NFL, but now he's figured it out. He's starting to do exactly what they want him to do in Chicago. That's a different conversation, but they're starting to look a little bit better. They're starting to figure it out in Chicago, I think, a little bit. And then Cooper DeJean was the man on defense and on special teams, and they're missing him more than they thought, I believe.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. The defense isn't quite as good. It's still,
right.
most college teams would. I mean, Lincoln Riley, we'll probably get to him maybe. He would love to have an Iowa defense at this point, right, and an Iowa O-line for that matter. But it's a tad bit worse than what it's been, like you said, and that small margin is really making a difference.
Yeah, it's just they're throwing it. It's just a combination, just not quite as sharp in every level, and then better on offense, but still just not good enough to. They're not scoring 40 points. That's just not what they're going to do, and that's not what Kirk Ferentz wants to do. Iowa State is in that situation where they can. I don't think they want to, but they can. And for a little bit on Saturday, I thought that's what they were going to have to do, because Iowa State, kind of going back to Iowa State a little bit, they've got all kinds of injuries. It's getting worse by every game. We had D linemen out. We had cornerbacks out. The middle linebackers out again. And I think most of them are able to come back and play this coming week. I believe. But there was one time on the one touchdown they had, the second touchdown they had, it was a broken, or it was the second half, it was a fourth down kind of broken play. Walk-on middle linebacker was free up the middle, and he made him miss and threw a touchdown pass, but should have been a sack if you had a player with, just, I don't care if you're walk-on, scholarship, just more experience and more time out there and probably more reps. I don't know how many times he'd ever been on the field in a meaningful game at Iowa State. Probably never. He's a walk-on from Humboldt.
Yeah, that goes back to the depth thing that we just talked about a few minutes ago. And then if you got all these players transferring to new teams, do they understand the playbook right away? Have they had the right coaching? Do they understand the scheme? So it's kind of a battle of nutrition right now for a lot of these teams with all the just transferring going on and lack of experience. So in Iowa State's case, if you're having a bunch of injuries, that's going to be a tough thing for them to overcome.
Absolutely. All right, let's kind of move on to the big picture of college football. Alabama losing to Vanderbilt. And I don't know if anybody watches YouTube SEC shorts. Have you ever watched those, Trev? I think I might have sent some of them to you in the past, but they've been really good this year. And they're playing up Vanderbilt when they beat Virginia Tech first week, and then they got beat and they brought them back down, and then they tried to revive them a little bit when they lost to Missouri in overtime, and Missouri put them back in a casket. And then this week, obviously, they won, so they brought him out. It's just really good. So SEC short on YouTube, if you like that kind of thing. It's a little comedy, and it's a play on the SEC, and it's, they go to Tennessee and Ole Miss, and Florida always has a Grim Reaper following them around in every week just because it's just a matter of time. It's just really good. It's fun. It's funny to watch. They also have an SEC roll call where a guy dresses up as each team and talks about their week. I'm a big dork, but that's what I watch at night. I don't watch TV shows or anything. I watch sports, and I watch YouTube videos like that.
Yeah, I did watch some of those last year. This year I haven't, but
Good.
Yeah, Vanderbilt's off to the heck of a start for the history of their program. And it's kind of funny. Like I said, I don't bet on spreads anymore or anything like that just because I'm not good at it. But I did look. I forget what exactly it was, but I just looked because I'm interested. And I thought, Vanderbilt, Alabama going on the road to the worst SEC school basically of all time. I was like, I wonder if Vanderbilt could keep this close. Well, not only did they keep it close, they won the game. So, yeah, I think we're going to keep seeing more upsets as the year goes on. I honestly don't know if any team is going to go in to the playoff undefeated. Everybody's just penciling in Texas to win this weekend, but I think Oklahoma's won a majority of the last 10, and I think Oklahoma won last year as well. So these rivalry games, we know how this is. It's a coin flip basically.
Yeah, and the thing about the Vanderbilt game, and again, didn't watch it. We were playing golf and stuff, but I was listening to people talk that Alabama only had one drive the entire game, and Milton ended up fumbling in that drive where they had the chance to take the lead because Vanderbilt got the ball and went down and scored right away. And so Vanderbilt was the better team most, if not all day on that. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't that they blocked a punt at the end to win it or returned a kick or made a big play or a pick six or anything. They were the better football team. And what's crazy is they've remodeled the stadium. I haven't been there. I've been in Nashville a few times, and one time we went out by the stadium, and I know they were redoing it all because last year they were making fun of them because the scoreboard was held up by cranes because they were redoing the whole thing, and they just had a temporary one for the season. And Vanderbilt is a really, really good school. It's much like Northwestern. It's not the Ivy League, but it's Duke, it's Northwestern, it's Vanderbilt. Those are the next best schools to go to. And the dorks beat the jocks. That was kind of the joke of the day.
Yeah, your education matters again. Apparently, is now people can get back on that trade. So, yeah, I still think we're going to see a lot of upsets. And yeah, again, going back to this weekend, it's it's a full day of just college football. Like I said, I love watching College Game Day in the mornings. I wake up at 6:30, take a quick shower, and it just puts me in a good mood for the day. McAfee on there. They have the kicking contest.
Yep.
The
That's
kid
fun to watch. McAfee, and we've talked about this, McAfee has changed that show so much. And they put Corso in his place. He comes out, 10 minutes left. He does his thing. Herb Street walks him through it. And great, do it, love it. But McAfee's the star of the show. And I think Nick Saban is great. And he's he's funny. He says it like it is. He cusses a little bit on there. It's kind of funny. And the best thing I like about those shows is they're real. Desmond Howard makes no bones about it. He'll cheer for Michigan every time. He doesn't care. Kirk Herbstreit's an Ohio State guy. Nick Saban is Alabama. And he's gonna go to the West Virginia side too, like when they're not together because he's from West Virginia. And then obviously McAfee is all in on West Virginia. And that's what I like. They don't try to, bounce around or anything and deny it. They are those fans. That's what they do. And I really enjoy that show. It's gotten much, much better. A couple years ago, I watched the Big Noon Kickoff. And some of it is it changed. Bob Stoops wasn't bad. I mean, Urban Meyer's really good. I wish it won't happen because Saban's on there, but I wish Saban and Urban Meyer are on the same set. That'd be awesome. I wish Urban Meyer went to ESPN College Game Day because those two would be great because they're both awesome. Probably the two best college football coaches in the history and for sure in our lifetimes. It's not even close. They both win at unbelievable levels. But I liked Reggie Bush a lot more than Mark Ingram on the Big Noon Kickoff. And I don't know what happened there, but it is what it is.
Yeah, no, Reggie was awesome, and Urban Meyer is really good. And yeah, both those shows, for me, it's more College Game Day, but they set the tone for the day for Saturday. And I just like watching it, waking up early. Like I said, it just puts you in a good mood and kind of gets you ready for College Game Day. They have the good stories about a walk-on. Then they have a sad story later on. Then they have the kicking contest, and it's just a big mixture of all of that. And it's 3 hours long, and it's just I think it's just the perfect setup each Saturday for all the games.
All right, so just let's pick the three. Let's go the 4 games. I'm going to go K-State and Colorado too, because we're going to see if Colorado. Everybody kind of threw them out the window when they lost to Nebraska. But they're undefeated in the conference as well. Iowa State does not play them this year, so they can't control what Colorado does. If they go undefeated or one loss, whatever, Iowa State do not play them this year. But let's pick the Red River Shootout. Who do you think will win that one?
I'm going to take Texas, but I think it's a 14-point spread, and I think only one of the last 10 games has been more than a one score. So I won't be surprised if it's close, but I am going to take Texas.
Yeah, I would do the same. If I was going to bet on the spread, I think I would bet Oklahoma. But to win the football game, I'd bet Texas as well. Agreed. Ohio State, Oregon.
It's tough because Oregon's one of the toughest places to play in the country. But Ohio State, I don't know. It's going to be a tough test for Will Howard. It's a real tough one. I'd probably go Ohio State. But I don't feel good about it either way.
See, I think Oregon will win. I just think Ohio State doesn't know what they're getting into out there. It's not their fault. The Big Ten doesn't go out west during the season. They just don't. It's not anybody's fault. They're all going to learn. In 5 years, if the same exact situation happened, I'd pick Ohio State because they've been there. They've done that. Not necessarily Oregon, but if they go to Washington or USC or UCLA. First trip out west. A really good team, like you said, one of the toughest places to play. The place is going to be absolutely nuts. I do think Ohio State is a better football team, but in this situation, I'm going to pick Oregon to win the football game.
Yeah, I'd like to change my pick already, but I'll stick with Ohio State. You make good points. I mean, it's their first trip out west for a regular season game. It's going to be tough. I hope that game lives up to the hype. I hope it's not a blowout either way.
Right. And then Ole Miss, LSU. This is really a de facto playoff game. Whoever loses this one's out, I believe.
Yeah, so this one I'm going to go with LSU playing there at home. That's my number one like bucket list stadium to get to.
I agree. When you go, I want to go too. I agree.
Yeah, I'd love to go. And I was high on Ole Miss coming into the year, but past couple weeks, or their past couple of games, they haven't looked quite what I thought they were going to look like. Now, part of that is, Kentucky is a pretty solid team actually, but I'm going to go with.
He's got a lot of Kirk Ferentz in him.
Yeah, they make it tough on those guys. So I am going to go LSU, even though I would like to see Ole Miss win the game though.
I'm going to go LSU too because it's at LSU. But this would not shock me one bit if Ole Miss comes back and wins this football game. That's straight up what Lane Kiffin does. You get all on top, high and mighty, ready to go to the playoff, top 5 in the country, crash. No one believes what they're going to do. He's going to go win a football game. So it would not – I'm going to pick LSU, but this would not shock me at all if Ole Miss wins this football game.
Yeah, this is another one. I hope it lives up to the hype. At night game there at LSU, that's arguably the best setting you can get in college football. I mean, Oregon's another, Penn State. I mean, there's about 10 or 20, but this is definitely one of them.
Yeah. And then, this one isn't a ranked game, or Kansas State's ranked, but Colorado is not. But this is just intriguing. Old Big 8 foes, old Big 12 foes. K-State, I think, is pretty good. They've got, they've lost. But K-State, Colorado, who you got? It's prime for real.
I'm going to go with Colorado. I think there's I did start to doubt them after that Nebraska game, but there seems to be some good momentum going on right now. So I'm going to go with Colorado.
I'm going to go with K-State, and it is simply, I do think, essentially they need to win, and a little bit of this is selfish. We need Kansas State to keep winning football games for the Iowa State game. We need Kansas State to have 1 or 2 losses and then beat them that last game of the year. If things go the way they should, we hope they do, Iowa State beats Kansas State, whether they lose a game before that or not. 1 loss, 0 losses, you can get that at-large bid after getting in the Big 12 championship game. But we need Utah to win every game from now until we play them. We need Kansas State to win every game between now and they play them. So this is personal. This is a personal, selfish pick for me. I'm going to pick K-State.
Yeah, no, it should be close. K-State looks. I don't know what to make of K-State yet. I'm kind of going back and forth on them, but yeah, I'm just going to go with the momentum of Colorado for right now.
And it's a home game. It is out in the mountains, so that place will be rocking too. Old rivals. Kansas State's really not that far away. A lot of people can make that drive if they want, just right down I-70. So we'll see. And again, that's a night. It's just a crazy night. Cyclones are going to be playing at the same time. You're going to have 2 or 3 TVs going, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to have my laptop, my monitor screen with 2 different games going on, then my TV with the third. And if my internet allows, I'll maybe have one on my phone as well.
Yeah, just put them all up.
Yeah.
All right. Now let's go to the NFL. The big story in the NFL is Robert Saleh fired from the Jets and then escorted out of the building. Now, I keep hearing that this is more common than you think it is. Not allowed to address the team. Is that a Jets thing? Is that an NFL thing? Or is it what I think happened? Aaron Rodgers is denying on McAfee that he had anything to do with it. That's not true. I don't care what anybody says. That's not true. He had something to do with it. He might not have actually done it or said, you got to fire him, but he had something to do with it. Or do you think that the GM and owner said, hey, let's go get Devontae Adams, and Saleh said no, and they said, all right, then you're out?
I don't know if that had to do with Devontae Adams. And as far as, being escorted out, it could be normal. I just haven't heard it. Now, I know in like corporate America,
right,
if you get fired from a job and you have access to computer and phone and, pricing information, you typically get escorted out. But it just seemed like something the Jets would do. Now, maybe it does happen with other NFL teams. I don't know. I just haven't heard of it. So it does seem strange. But Eric Mangini said it best the week before the game. He said if if the Jets and Robert Saleh go over there to London and lay an egg and embarrass Woody Johnson in front of all his rich friends over there, he's the ambassador. He's like, I think he'll get fired. He called it. I mean, a couple of the weird things, though, is wait until Tuesday morning to do it.
Right.
And then there's the rumor that comes out that, Saleh was going to demote Nathaniel Hackett from the OC. He was still going to be employed, but he wasn't going to call plays no more. And then 2 hours later, he's fired. You wonder if Woody Johnson heard that and knew it would, tick off Aaron Rodgers. And we know how Aaron Rodgers gets. He gets his feelings hurt. He'll say all the stuff on McAfee and all these different things. But I'm with you. I think Aaron Rodgers definitely probably had something to do with this, because he and Woody Johnson had a conversation Monday night. So it's tough for me to believe that Aaron didn't know. He's denying like crazy, like he always does. But given his history, I'd have to think he knew this was going to happen.
Well, and just some of the things that we've seen publicly where I don't think they saw eye to eye, that hug or chest bump, whatever, first week where Rodgers denied it. And then Saleh kind of saying, you got to change your cadence. So we're getting false starts, and Rodgers saying, absolutely not. That's how I play. That's what we practice. It's just on the guys for making mistakes. So there's two situations there where they just didn't agree. They didn't see eye to eye. And the Jets realize that their window is closing because Aaron Rodgers is closer to the end than we think. He's not playing until he's 45, 46 years old, I don't think. Not with that Achilles tear. You can just see he's playing like a 40-year-old quarterback. It's still above average, but it's not Aaron Rodgers. One of the best of all time to ever do it.
No, it's not. And there's a lot of people in the media that have come out with this theory, and I think they're right on it. This relationship was probably good last year between him and Saleh. Where it started to go downhill and basically it was unfixable was when Saleh said his absence was unexcused for going to Egypt.
Right.
Now Rodgers denies that, but Rodgers put Saleh in a no-win situation. Saleh either has to go up there and lie, and the whole team knows he's lying. That's going to tick some guys off, or just tell the truth, and you're going to tick Aaron Rodgers off. And we know how Aaron Rodgers gets. He gets his feelings hurt, and he gets very passive-aggressive. I mean, Rodgers is the type of guy, if you're a receiver and you drop a pass, and that's one thing I've noticed this year, especially anytime guys drop passes or there's miscommunication on routes, he's throwing up his hands, he's shaking his head. He's very dramatic about everything. Like, Aaron, you're the quarterback. You got to be a better leader than that. And I don't know, this kind of goes back to after the Packers won the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers in those next few years. All I heard was Rodgers is better than Favre. And I said, well, let's wait and see. They both have their faults, but Favre, he would throw it to you 3 straight times. And if you dropped it 3 in a row on 4th down, he'd throw it to you again if you were open. He didn't care. And I think these guys, their biggest strengths are their biggest weaknesses. Favre was the gunslinger. Right. You're either going to win or lose on his shoulders. Rodgers was the more conservative quarterback. And I think in a lot of playoff games, way too conservative. And he was more worried about not throwing an interception than, throwing a game-winning pass or a touchdown. So I don't know. Favre got to another Super Bowl, and I think he's got 2 more playoff wins. But anyway, that's just a little, I'm a Favre homer. Take off the field stuff out there. But yeah, Rodgers, he'll deny everything. He gets his feelings hurt. He's above criticism. He'll deny that he's not, but he's above criticism. He doesn't like anybody in the media, coaching staff. He does not want to be called out at all. It'll tick him off.
All right. Any other NFL stuff? 49ers find another way to lose. The Bears look better. Are the Vikings for real? And the Chiefs still not playing well, but continue to win. Those are kind of the headlines,
Yeah, let's talk a couple silly things that happened first, and then we'll talk about some of the teams. First, Antonio Pierce liking the social media post about Devontae Adams. You can't do that as a head coach. You just can't. I mean, is that thing in itself a super big deal? No, but after the Raiders finish, 5-12 this year, like I think they're going to, they're already having a quarterback carousel going on. Their star receiver wants to be traded. That could be the dagger for him. As of right now today, I don't think he's going to be the head coach of the Raiders next year. You got to have more self-awareness. That's just a silly thing to do as a head coach. And then the Bills game, that was the one game I got at home. So I watched all of that game. Josh Allen, worst game of his career besides his rookie season, I would say up to this point. and they get the ball back, at the 3-yard line, 2 or 3 yard line, whatever it was, and 3 straight passes. And I could just see it coming. Yep. And it's just like he was 9 for 30. He ended up in that game. Like, the coach has to realize, and he got knocked out right before that. So if you're the head coach, Sean McDermott, you have to realize, hey, our quarterback's not playing good. Let's run it 3 times here. Even if we only get 4 or 5 yards, we're still taking time off the clock, and we're helping our punt team get a little extra room to punt the ball. Because I think the Texans had to make a 59-yard field goal.
Right.
Imagine 4 or 5 extra yards. Maybe they wouldn't have been able to make it. So that's just a silly decision given the circumstances.
But I'm going to just play devil's advocate there. Do you want to hand it to one of your running backs, or do you want to have the ball in your best player's hand, in Josh Allen, to make the decision? He should have just almost ate it, get outside the pocket, get tackled at the 3-yard line, make 1 yard, whatever you need to do if you don't have the complete a pass to complete. Obviously, it didn't happen that way, but I don't know if I'm so critical on the coaches in that situation, because you want the ball in your best player's hand.
Typically, I'd agree, but in this situation, he was playing the worst game of his career, and like I said, he got basically knocked out right before that. Like, I mean, if you want to have a designed run, I guess you could do that, but 3 straight passes, I just thought that was silly. What's victory there? You got to go at least 55, 60 yards to even get into field goal range. I mean, I just run the ball and try to give your punt team a little bit more room and go to overtime, because you're not going to – the likelihood of going 55, 60 yards or whatever it would have been, it's not very likely in that situation, especially when your quarterback's playing the worst game of his career, like I said, since his rookie year.
All right. Then a couple of other silly things there. But, yeah, just 3 straight, you get rid of it, and then the 59-yarder. And the Texans kicker is not one of the strongest legs in the NFL, and he still made the 59-yarder.
Yeah, I haven't seen the stats for sure, but everybody's talking about these kickers are just making these long field goals like crazy. It seems like, Justin Tucker's struggling this year. He finally made a long one this past weekend, but yeah, maybe kickers are just they're getting stronger. They're getting a little bit better on their trajectory, a little bit lower kick that can travel a distance. Who knows what it is, but yeah, there's just some. And then, Lincoln Riley, his little press conference, speaking of coaches that did silly things, I know we're in NFL right now, but him going off on the media, he's already had his troubles with the media before the season started, not allowing people at practices and stuff like that. He's digging himself a hole, and he's got a tough one this weekend, and one that they're probably going to lose.
Yeah, I don't, as a USC guy, you cannot go into Minneapolis and lose that game. You can go into the big house and lose. It's okay. Mm. You can't go to Minneapolis and lose.
No, you can't. And I obviously took that LSU victory that they had week 1. I put too much stock in that without a doubt, because I was really impressed with them in that one. And I thought there were some really good moments versus Michigan where I was impressed, but they really struggled versus Wisconsin. They got beat by Minnesota. Now you got Penn State coming to town. They've got some real players on both sides of the O-line and the D-line. So, yeah, it's going to get rough for Lincoln here in a hurry if he loses this one.
Yeah, I agree. And he really doesn't have anybody to fault but himself. He's been given everything. He's at USC. Pete Carroll showed that you can do it there. Now, proven that he cheated, but now you can do all that stuff Pete Carroll did, and it's legal. I mean, you can pay Reggie Bush $5 million. You can give his parents a house. Doesn't matter. So the things that USC was accused of cheating for are absolutely legal now. So,
yeah, you're right. He's got no excuses. And then, getting back to the NFL, you start looking around. There's some teams struggling. The Niners, you mentioned, the Rams, the Bengals, the Jags. And you got to wonder if one of them or multiple of those teams can make a run and get back into the playoffs. The Niners aren't as bad because I think they're at 2-3. But for the Rams and the Bengals especially, what I would say, you're sitting there at 1-4. Try to be at 500 by week 10, and then you've got 7 games to go, and you can maybe go on a run. But you've got to start getting some victories, because both those teams they're one loss away from being one loss of being out of the playoffs just about. So they're going to have to go on a winning streak.
Yeah, so you're going to need to be 11-6 to get the playoffs. I mean, to be safe.
10-7 might get it done. You at least got to. Your goal has to at least be get to 10 victories or more.
Right, and then you got a chance, not guaranteed, but yeah. So yeah, you got a whole bunch of weeks left and only 6 losses to get.
Yeah, it's getting pretty bad. So yeah, I mean the Niners and the Bengals, if they go 10-7, they can only lose 3 more games the rest of the way. So they're gonna have to rattle off some victories here soon, and we'll see. The Rams got a lot of injuries. The Bengals defense just stinks. I mean, Joe Burrow, if they had a good record, he's the MVP of the league right now.
Right, he's playing
1-4. So it's weird. You never know with the NFL. We made our predictions. Who would have thought that the top 2 seeds in the NFC would be Minnesota and Washington?
Right.
You and I didn't have that. I know that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, your top 2 MVP. 2 of the top MVP guys are Sam Darnold and Jalen Daniels.
Yeah,
and there's no arguing that right now.
No, through 5 weeks, there isn't any argument. We'll see if it keeps up. But
right.
Yeah, that's the great thing about the NFL. There's always a couple surprise teams. The Saints started out hot the first 2 weeks, blowing people out, and then they've lost 3 straight. They've kind of come back down to earth. So I think we're kind of finding out what these teams are all about. But there will be a team that claws back that we don't really pay attention to until they're about 500. And there'll probably be a team that right now looks okay or even good that fades a little bit. They still may get in the playoffs, but they may just lose a bunch of games toward the end, and kind of like the Eagles last year. Maybe not that dramatic, right. But the Eagles started out 10-1, and then they lost however many straight, including the playoff game. Something like that could happen. Maybe not that many games in a row, but a team that starts out hot and kind of fades toward the end.
Yeah, I don't know who that is right now, but the Seahawks would be another one. Didn't they start 3-0 and now have lost a couple in a row, including one to the Giants there?
Yeah, they lost to the Lions, and then they lost to the Giants this past week. And that's Thursday night's going to be a good game. That's San Francisco at Seattle this week. Right.
They both need a win.
They both need a win. That's a big Thursday night game. It should be a good one, I would think.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Bears. They look better. It does take time. We've talked about it. Now, just me personally, I don't think their coach is the guy, but he is what we have, and we need to win now. You can't ever, hey, let's just punt to next year, because then you fire the coach, you get a new coordinator in again, and it just kind of, then you got to give him a couple years, and all of a sudden you're at that Caleb Williams 5-year deal, and you got to make a decision. So whatever it is, we've got to win now. And we've won a couple in a row against teams we should win. You got to take advantage of the teams you're favored or real close, because you're going to play some teams where you're not better than, and you're probably going to lose going forward, because the NFC North is pretty good. We didn't think the Vikings would be very good, but they're really good. The Lions are really good, and the Packers aren't bad.
Yeah, the Bears are playing better for sure. They've actually got a little bit of running game going. Caleb looks more comfortable. So it may just be a case of got to get a few weeks to play together, all those type of things. Their defensive backs are exceptional in Chicago, like one of the best, probably the most underrated in the league, I would say. The average fan probably wouldn't know that. Bears fans do. But no, Caleb's looking the part now. If you look at the splits between his first 10 quarters and his last 10 quarters of this season, it's a night and day difference. He's playing good for a rookie as far as rookie standards go. So, yeah, the NFC North is going to be a real battle to see who comes out of there and how many teams come out of that division.
Right. As of right now, who do you pick to get last in that division?
Given the quarterback play and some of the decisions I've seen, it's hard to put Green Bay there because they're so well run and they just always come out. I think Minnesota and Detroit are for real. Detroit for sure. They were my Super Bowl pick out of the NFC, but probably the Packers or the Bears are going to be battling for that third spot, and then whoever finishes fourth.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I think they're all going to be right in play for the playoffs, but one of them is going to end up dead last in the division. That's what's crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. We talked about it this summer. I wasn't sure if it'd be this year, but I thought maybe next year that the NFC North could be the best division in all of football, and it's looking like it might be trending that way.
Yeah. Anything else in the NFL for you?
No, not much other than just, the Jets are the Jets. I talked about it this summer, bad owners. It trickles down.
Yeah. He's got all kinds of money, though. Johnson & Johnson makes just a little bit of money.
Yeah, no, they've got, he's successful in that aspect, but as far as being an owner, he wants to be the owner. He wants to be the GM. He wants to be the coach. He wants to be the personnel director. Doesn't usually work.
Right. You got to let your people do their job. All right. Kind of last thing here, last 5 minutes or so. Hurricane Milton did hit just south of Tampa there. I think Siesta Key is where it hit. Is it just me? And I'm going to rail on meteorologists here. And those of you that know me, I just don't get it. They kept talking about historic and the worst storm ever. They do it here in the Midwest too. Every snowstorm is going to be the worst ever. You're going to get 2.5 feet of snow. It ends up being 4 inches. Now there's going to be people that lose a lot of stuff and it's flooding and everything else, but they were talking the worst storm ever. It was a category 3. It wasn't even a 4 or a 5. Now at one time it was, but when it hit, it wasn't. I guess I didn't think it was as bad as it was going to be. They said it was going to hit at 11 o'clock tonight. It hit like 2 hours ago. I don't know. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not a scientist. But do they like hearing themselves and they want to all be on TV and doing everything? I don't know what it is that they make you plan for the worst, I guess. I guess they're erring on the side of caution or erring on the worst side. So if it's not as bad, they look better, but it just drives me nuts.
Yeah, obviously people are going to lose some homes. People are going to die. But fear sells. We saw that during COVID.
Right.
Fear sells. It gets ratings. So that's probably my opinion on it. The stuff in Virginia though is pretty brutal. It was tough to see. Those Chimney Rock, Virginia got washed away. That some of those sites were really rough. But yeah, you're right. Like just talking like snowstorms in Iowa, where typically people probably aren't going to die or anything. Hopefully, they do make it sound like this is going to be the worst snowstorm since ¡76 or
right.
whatever it's going to be, and it turns out to be. It's like, okay, it's a snowstorm. It's cold. Yeah, there's a foot of snow on the ground, but is it really that bad?
Yeah, and then I'm watching it right now. I've got it on one of my TVs here. A guy standing out there. Yes, it's blowing. It's raining. It's a storm. But I guess I don't understand. It can't be that bad if they're standing out in it. I guess that's my thing too.
Yeah, sometimes you got to shake your head at all these storms, and I know you have a personal vendetta against weather people. So it does seem sometimes like they really do overplay what could be going on. Again, there are some that really are bad, but like I said, snowstorms are a good one because typically people aren't going to die. But yeah, they always say this is the biggest snowstorm since whenever. And
it was historic hurricanes coming. I don't know. I guess a historic would be like the worst ever, wouldn't it? I don't know. Didn't the worst part of this, didn't a hurricane just go through this area? That's the worst part. They hadn't even cleared it all up from the last one. That's the worst part. It's just one after the other.
Yeah, and maybe that's something to do with it. It's just one after another, and it's just they don't have any time to clean stuff up or to help people because by the time all the damage clears and they can get to people, here comes another storm, right? So, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that Virginia one though with the flooding and all that is
right. North Carolina, Virginia. That's what I text our friend Brad Maroff. You know him. Ask if he was okay. He lives. I can't remember where he lives, but he said the bad stuff was about 2 hours away from him. The really bad flooding.
Okay.
So he said he was good, so that's good.
Yeah, I don't know. I typically don't watch the news very often, but it's tough because it's all over social media and you see the videos and it's pretty bad in that area for sure.
Right. And that's actually the part that you don't see. They always talk about, Florida or Georgia or, some of those North Carolina ones have come right on shore in North Carolina. But this last one, and getting back to sports in this, Augusta got smoked. And there's question marks on what Augusta's going to be able to do, and it's going to look different because they lost a lot of trees and everything else like that. Now, if anybody has the money and resources to get it back, they do. But sometimes Mother Nature does win.
Yeah, Mother Nature and Father Time, those are two tough ones to beat. So, yeah, Augusta, I think, will figure out a way. We saw it during COVID year when they had the fall tournament. They'll actually probably have some things that they did or didn't think about that may help them here to get ready for that spring tournament. Maybe they have to push it back a month or a few weeks. I mean, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, because you could put the Masters, not that you want to play Georgia in August. I wouldn't. But you could play the Masters in the middle of football and people would watch the Masters. I really believe that. Mm-hmm. That's the one tournament that you could put ending on a Sunday. And if it's the right people there, if somehow Tiger would be in the final groups or in a chance to play, the PGA Tour would be right there with the NFL.
Yeah, if Tiger could be in a top 10 position, maybe around top 12, and you've got some other big names in there, yeah, that even if it went to the fall, they would be okay. It probably wouldn't be quite the same ratings as the spring, but they wouldn't drop off too much, I wouldn't think.
No. Well, but those people that are impacted by it, because there is a lot of rain, there is, a lot of damage will happen, and water is one of the worst things. Like when you get flooded, if you've ever had just a flooded basement or anything else, water is the worst to clean up because it finds every little piece and every little crack and every little thing, and then it just leaves mud and dirt and everything else behind. So for those that are impacted, it does stink. And however, a lot of people are moving to that part of the country. And do you think that has something to do with it? There's a lot more people that live in that part of the country than used to. Because if you look at where people are moving, it is to the southeast in this country right now.
And Colorado, Utah, and Idaho are some other ones. It's weird because anytime I talk to customers, coworkers, we have people come in and give predictions of what the next 10 years look like. It seems like almost every state gets mentioned that, yeah, there's a lot of people moving there. It feels like almost every state has a ton of people moving right now for whatever reason.
So, all righty. Well, any big plan besides, watching all the games on Saturday? Any other big plans traveling this week or anything?
No, Taylor and Alyssa and their kids are going to be in town Thursday and Friday. So I think Friday afternoon, I'm going to go meet them at the Royal Gorge and go do that with them. I don't think Taylor's been down there yet, so we're going to go and do that. That bridge I've been there probably 5 times now in my life. It's about an hour and a half from where I live, and it's
cool. I've been there.
Yeah, it's every time I go there, I get more and more scared walking across that bridge. So I'll have to see if I can actually walk across, because there's some pretty sizable gaps when you're looking down through that bridge. It can be a little intimidating. If you don't like heights, it probably ain't the place for you.
No, I'm not the biggest fan, but you got to do it.
Yeah, you got to do it. So, yeah, I'm going to go do that with them and then probably have dinner with them after Friday. And then, like I said, Saturday, just being a couch bum, watching football all day.
Yeah, I'm going to take a walk during the Hawk game and listen to Gary Dolphin and Pat Anger.
No, I'm not going to even listen to it. I don't need 3 hours of depression. Hour and a half will do.
All right. Thanks a lot, Trev, and we'll talk again next week.
All right. Have a good night.